Hey everybody, Professor Long here, doing a lecture for you in your Anatomy and Physiology course at Del Mar College. This lecture is intended for my students. Anyone else that watches it, you might glean something from it. Anyway, this is the very first lecture that I'm doing in this format since the COVID-19 breakout, the pandemic, and a lot of things shutting down. We're having to move to an online format. So I've rigged up a little setup here in my home. I'm going to do my best to deliver some instruction that's easy to follow. For those of you that are in my class, follow along in your note set. I think we're starting on page 53. And on the same Canvas page that you found the link to this video, there's a link to a worksheet. You can print it out and follow along and fill it in. It will help you for the short quiz that follows this section. I'm going to try to break the muscle system into several sections so these videos don't get too long, so that you can follow along and take a series of short quizzes. Each of those quizzes will be added to the others so that we come up with basically what would be an exam grade. I hope this is helpful. Please follow along, all right? I'm going to move out of your screen for the most part. It's going to be a little awkward, but what can we do? All right, so if you're following along on the worksheet or note set, one of the things you need to know is, what does all muscle tissue do? And all muscle tissue is going to contract, which means that it will shorten in length to move things. Now that's not really the perfect technical definition. As you can see, it's somewhat of a technical definition combined with the way that I try to review things or view the world. I have to simplify stuff. I'm not that smart. But this is what muscle tissue does. Muscle tissue never lengthens and pushes on stuff. It will contract and shorten and pull on things like bones and other stuff. So, now that we know that, let's talk about the different types of muscle tissue. There's three types of muscle tissue in the human body. One type of muscle tissue is called skeletal muscle. Well, the obvious reason it's called skeletal muscle is it's attached to bones, and that's where we find it. And you should know these two things. Where do we find each one of these muscle tissues, and what is their sort of more specific function of each? But skeletal muscle, is attached to bones. And it does what we call locomotion. It moves your body, and it can maintain posture and body position. Now we're going to go over the functions of skeletal muscle in a little bit more detail. These are the two main ones. It moves your body around. It holds you upright. It helps maintain body position, let's say if you were doing some yoga or something. Another type of muscle tissue is cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is found in the heart, the only place we find it. Hence the name cardiac muscle. Your heart is largely a muscle. It has some connective tissue, some nervous tissue, and some fatty tissue associated with it, so that it's an organ. It's comprised of numerous tissues, but it's largely muscle. And the major function of your heart is that it pumps blood through the vessels. So your heart has some empty chambers inside of it, and just like if you squeeze your hands up and filled it with water, and then you really squeezed, it would shoot the water out the opening. When your heart contracts, because there's large vessels connected, it pumps blood through all your vessels throughout your cardiovascular system. And the main function of that is, as you guys know, all of our cells need oxygen and glucose to make a usable form of energy called ATP. And our blood is delivering oxygen and glucose to those tissues so that they can continue to function. Now, the third type of muscle tissue is called smooth muscle. Now, of these three muscle tissues, smooth muscle is the one that's most forgotten about. People don't focus on it a whole lot, so you should know this. Smooth muscle is found in a number of locations. It's found in the walls of viscera. It's found in the walls of vessels. And it's found in the walls of glands and ducts. So, let's talk about this. Most of your soft viscera has smooth muscle in it. For example, the digestive tract. Your stomach has muscles in the walls that allow it to squeeze and churn and twist and mix food up. Your small and large intestine have smooth muscle in it that contracts in the walls in these waves. So just like squeezing toothpaste from a tube, if I squeeze one part and it pushes some stuff down, then I squeeze the next part and the next part. And so these muscles contract in waves, propelling food and digestive contents through the tract. We also find it in the walls of blood vessels. Your arteries, particularly the tunica media of arteries and veins, is smooth muscle. We talked about this in lab. And in an artery, the muscle will constrict or dilate. If it contracts and constricts, it will decrease blood flow. There's a smaller diameter there, less blood can flow through. If it relaxes and dilates, then I can have a lot more blood flowing through. So we can control blood flow to organs and tissues, and we can redirect blood flow by dilating some blood vessels and constricting others. This is the sympathetic-parasympathetic effect that we've mentioned several times throughout the semester. So if I'm in sympathetic stimulation, fight or flight, if I just found a snake in my laundry and I've jumped up, then my heart's going to start beating 90 miles an hour. My breathing rate is going to go up so that I can get in more oxygen and blow out more carbon dioxide that my muscle is utilizing and producing. I need more blood flow to my muscles so that I can run or fight for my life. And I want more blood flow to the brain so that I can think my way out of a difficult situation. So under sympathetic stimulation, we're going to dilate blood vessels to the heart, to the lungs, to the brain, and skeletal muscle. And we're going to constrict some blood vessels that go to other tissues, particularly a lot of the viscera of the digestive tract, the reproductive tract, and our waist function. This allows us to have as much energy to those parts of our body that are going to get us to survival. If you just ate a giant bowl of pasta or you're tired, you will start to constrict blood vessels that go to the brain, the heart, the lungs, and the skeletal muscle. We're not burning as much energy. We're turning on those systems like digestion, urinary, reproductive that don't burn a tremendous amount of energy. And therefore, we can dilate blood vessels to those tissues and constrict blood vessels going to the brain, the heart, the lungs, and skeletal muscle. We get drowsy. We don't think as well. We get sluggish under parasympathetic stimulation, which is important to note. If you're going to take an exam or play a sporting event, don't have a giant meal, something heavy like breads and pastas and pizza before or during a tournament or an important game before an exam. Eat some brain fruit, something light, something healthy. So we also find smooth muscle in the walls of glands. Many of your glands, the way that they secrete is the smooth muscle will slowly begin to contract and release the fluids. And we find it in the ducts coming from those glands very often, particularly like in the reproductive tract. The smooth muscle will contract in wave-like fashions, releasing a lot of the reproductive secretions. What I didn't list here, and I probably should, is your respiratory tract. We talked about the digestive tract, the reproductive tract, the urinary tract will have some smooth muscle in it. The respiratory tract also does. Your trachea and bronchi have to control oxygen and airflow into and out of the lungs. So if you're under sympathetic stimulation and you're burning a lot of oxygen, I want that trachea and those bronchi dilated, letting more air flow so I can get more oxygen in and more carbon dioxide out with each breath. If I'm under parasympathetic stimulation, like when we're going to sleep at night, it will constrict, which is why we wheeze and make more noise and all sorts of other things when we're sleeping. Also, if you were to walk into a big dust storm or dirt storm or a lot of debris is blowing around, a lot of pollen and stuff in the air, in order to protect the lungs from filling up with trash and dirt and debris, we will constrict the respiratory tract, limiting airflow. It becomes harder to breathe, but it protects the lungs from damage and filling up with junk. Okay, so you should know all of that information about where we find each muscle tissue and what its major function is. Here, we've talked about it. Here, we've talked about it. Here, we've talked about it. And the major function basically is to control movement of air and fluids and things through all of these systems. So now, let me clear the board here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about a couple of other things. And I'm going to stop this video and make another video, because if they get too long, it becomes too hard for me to upload them and manage stuff. So one last thing. We're going to start focusing a little bit more on skeletal muscle. there are some functions to skeletal muscle. So we're going to focus mostly on skeletal muscle. One of those functions is locomotion. We talked about this before. It moves your location in space. I want to move the location of my hand, some muscles are going to contract on the bones, move my hand, move my body around. We said that it can maintain posture and body position. So, if your parents tell you sit up straight, that's because, or what they want you to do is work those skeletal muscles that will develop their strength so that you always have a straight back and look, like you're presentable, I guess. And they maintain body position. If you were going to be doing Warrior 3 or something and you're in yoga and you're holding body position, it's skeletal muscle doing that. Another function of skeletal muscle is it can support soft organs or viscera. Think about your abdomen. There's nothing holding everything in here but skeletal muscle. All those abdominal muscles, the rectus, the two obliques, and the transverse abdominis. If those muscles are nice and tight, they pull all your guts in and make your stomach look nice and flat. If those muscles are weak, then your guts will start to sag against them and your belly will bulge out. So they help support our soft organs. Another function of skeletal muscle is it can guard entrances and exits to the body. It will guard the entrances and exits of the body. So, somebody's trying to cram something in your pie hole and you don't want it, you contract a whole bunch of skeletal muscle around the mouth, and it's like trying to feed a baby that doesn't want to eat what you're trying to feed it. And if you want to take something in, you relax that muscle and open it up. The exact same is true on the other end of the digestive tract. If there's something that's trying to sneak out at the most inopportune moment, you can contract some sphincter muscles and try to hold them in. Or when it's time to release them, when you're in a nice, quiet, lonely place that won't embarrass you, you relax them. So they can guard the entrance and exits of the body. They can help maintain body temperature. And I'm going to put help in parentheses there because they don't necessarily determine your body temperature, but they can help maintain it. One of the things that happens if you get too cold is that when we burn the energy in muscle contractions, not 100% of energy is transferred to the muscle, and some energy is always lost into the universe in another way. Basically, one of the fundamental rules in physics is energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. In that transformation, almost never do we get 100% transfer of energy. Some of it is lost as light, as heat, as motion. So when our muscles are contracting and we're shivering, they're generating a lot of heat to try to help keep you warm. It's sort of almost an involuntary thing that happens to help maintain body temperature, which is skeletal muscle shivering. And finally, muscles can store nutrients and ions. We don't think a lot about this, but muscle is filled with glycogen. We haven't gotten to talk a lot about this in part 1 A&P, but when we eat sugar, glucose, one of the primary types of sugar that our cells burn for energy, if we eat too much sugar, we don't lose it. It's almost as if somebody gave you too much money, you put some in savings. The sugar savings, the way we store the sugar, is called glycogen, and we store it in two major places, the liver and skeletal muscle. So skeletal muscle has some of its own energy reserves that we can break down that glycogen and release the sugar so that the muscle can keep functioning until our heart can start delivering more oxygen and glucose. And muscle stores a lot of ions. By the way, also in addition to glycogen, muscle has some fat in it, and fat can be burned for energy as well, lots of lipids. And then the ions. Muscle is rich in calcium ions. There are other ions, but there's a lot of calcium and iron in muscle. So, now, because it gets hard to manage these videos once they get too long, I'm going to stop here. There'll be another video coming for this segment. It'll say Muscle Video 1, Muscle Video 2, or Muscle Lecture 1, Muscle Lecture 2. And then after these two sections, you can watch them separately. there will be a quiz coming in a week or so. I'm going to get into the anatomy of skeletal muscle in just a second, but I'm going to stop this video and start another one shortly. Okay?